The next question will come from Chuck Johnson, and we'll go to Mr. Lewis.
Mr. Lewis, most candidates have been saying they want to cut the federal budget and eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse. Yet Montana receives about $1.92 back from the federal government for every dollar we pay in federal taxes, 8th highest among the states. What 3 federal programs affecting Montana are you willing to propose cutting or eliminating?
Well, everyone agrees that we've got to do something to address the deficit in this country, but it's also about priorities. And there are proposals in Congress right now, the Ryan budget, for instance, that puts a big red target on working folks and turns Medicare into a voucher system. 1 in 5 Montanans uses the benefits of Medicare and Social Security, including my own parents. So we need to improve those programs, but we need to look for ways that we can cut out wasteful spending. The federal government owns 80,000 unused buildings. Surely they can sell off some of those and save there. They have a fleet of cars of 600,000 vehicles. We have 5 military bases in Europe alone. There are areas that we can make cuts in this country, and I come back to it's about priorities. And the budget, the Ryan budget being proposed in Congress right now, puts a red target on rural America. Cuts to Amtrak, cuts to Essential Air Service, cuts Saturday delivery, cuts to Pell Grants. Over half of college students in this country, or in Montana, use Pell Grants. Cuts to Head Start. 500 less kids in Montana would have access to Head Start if the Ryan budget became law. So it's about priorities. We've got to cut out wasteful spending and attack the deficit in this country.
Mr. Zinke, your answer?
Well, I think we can start with the 73 agencies that have SWAT-like groups. We can cut those. And the Ryan budget, I think the Ryan budget actually is a pretty good framework. It's not perfect, and I'll agree. Medicare is an issue, but Medicare should have been addressed when we shuffled over $700 billion from Medicare into the Obama account. So I think we need to keep our promises to our elderly, particularly in the Medicare and veterans benefits. That's a promise that a great nation made, and we need to keep those promises. But the Ryan budget as a framework, it balances the budget in 10 years. It balances the budget in 10 years. And we didn't get in the problems we got overnight. So for some, it's probably not as aggressive as it should be. I guess that's my politics. Because if you're on the far left, I'm just way too conservative for you. If you're on the far right, I'm probably not conservative enough. But for Montana, I think I'm just about right. I read the bills, I listen. I try to forward the best policies in the best interest of our nation and the best interest of Montana, always. Again, I'm an optimist. I think we can produce a budget that values our commitments, that keeps our promises, and balances the budget, because that's what we need to do.
Mr. Fellows, your answer?
Well, I think Ryan's got it wrong when he says the Ryan budget balances the budget in 10 years. What the Ryan budget actually does is it increases spending year after year from 3 to 5%. In 10 years, we're going to be spending $1.5 trillion or on upwards more than we're spending in 2014. So it's not going to balance the budget, and that's where he's wrong. I think we're also going to have to deal with Medicare and Social Security. Obviously, those budgets and those trust funds are having problems, and they're going to go broke. And so, if we want to save something for future generations, we're going to have to deal with those things now. Governor Gary Johnson said if former governor of New Mexico, that if the federal government had just block granted Medicaid money to him, he'd find a better way to make it work. We have 50 state innovations working on some of those things, but some of the things that I would probably get rid of are things like the Department of Education. Education is better at the local level. We've lost our footing in science and math because I think of some of these regulations like No Child Left Behind and Common Core. I think the Commerce Department is something else we could get rid of. I think even the Department of Energy. It doesn't produce any energy, and a lot of stuff that it does is also being mirrored in the Department of Defense, like in nuclear energy. And so those are 3 things I think we can do as well and send that money back to the states and let them worry about education. Let the parents themselves make those choices on education.
Mr. Lewis, your response?
Well, look, step one is passing a budget. Congress should not get a pay raise until they can pass a budget. Communities, families, businesses across this country work on a budget every day. The only place that can't pass a budget is Congress. But the Ryan budget looks at the wrong places to balance the budget, including Medicare. Medicare does not add to the deficit in this country. It will starting in 2024, and we should do something about that. But let's not look first at areas that working folks, seniors in this state depend on.
Mr. Zinke, your response?
Well, the Ryan budget, again, is a framework. It's not perfect. But again, transferring over $700 billion from Medicare to Obamacare makes it insolvent in the long run. Do I think you can cut your way out of the mess we're in? No. You can cut the entirety of the Department of Defense budget, and it's not enough. It's not enough. You're going to have to grow the economy. And believe me, of the three legs between taxes, cutting, and growth, growth has the most potential. Because in this country, when we become energy independent, when we get government out of business and remove the barricades so America can do what America does best, innovate, think out of the box. That's the strength of America. And if we allow America to do those things, our economy will grow 5.5%, and we will lead by example. I'm confident of it.
Mr. Fellows, your response?
Well, I think the system is broken. We'll never see a balanced budget in my lifetime anyway, because Congress, they don't have the willpower. They don't really want to reduce spending because they're too busy sending all that money back home in order to buy votes. And that's why you see a lot of this money in politics, because they're simply buying votes so they can give money to all these different corporations. The Farm Bill was certainly a bill of that nature, where we gave all kinds of subsidies to these rich and powerful corporations like Archer Daniels Midland Company, who didn't really need the money, but we're giving all this money away. And I think senators like Tom Coburn probably got it right that some of this stuff is too small. It's too small to cut, and the big stuff they don't want to cut because they don't want to have to go home to their constituents and have to sit in front of a public audience like this and explain their votes to their constituents.